What's going on? Hope everybody's doing good. Today we're going to be talking about using intercepts, that is the X and Y intercepts. So first we got to talk about what those are. So our X intercept is where a line crosses the X axis, and our Y intercept is where the line crosses the Y axis. And so one of the things that you'll notice on the graph, or especially once we start to look at this in equations, is that to find the x-intercept you're going to let the y value equal 0, and to find the y-intercept you're going to let the x value equal 0. So if you look at it on a graph, you see the black coordinate plane here with the red line through it. When you find the y-intercept, okay, the x value is going to be 0, and then the y value is just whatever y value you're on, that's the y value. And then the x-intercept would be the same way. So you look, find where the line crosses the x, whatever that x value is, that's what you put for x, and then the y value is 0 because that's where it is on the y. So we can take that information. It's pretty easy when you're looking at a line. We can take that information, we can use it to help us figure out some things over here. If I've got an equation and it's in standard form, it's going to make it really pretty simple. And so if I want to find the x and y intercepts and then they want me to graph it, if I want to find the x-intercept, okay, so if I want to find the x-intercept, that means I'm going to let y equal 0. So if I'm going to let y equal 0, that means I have 2x minus 3 times 0 equals -6. Okay, so really I just have 2x equals -6. Now, when I just solve this, if I divide by 2, okay, then I get x equals -3. Okay, so that is my x-intercept. So if I was going to write it as a point, I would write it -3, 0. Alright? If I want to find the y-intercept, then I'm going to let x equal 0. Okay, so now I would say 2 times 0 minus 3y equals -6. So this is really just -3y equals -6. So when I divide by -3, I get y equals 2. Alright, so if I was going to write it as a point, my x value would be 0, my y value would be 2, and there you have it. Now, if I'm going to graph this, if I want to graph it, just a real quick sketch of it, then all I have to do is graph my x-intercept. So I would say 1, 2, -3, and put a point. And then I would say my y-intercept is 2, so I'd go 1, 2, put a point there. And now I can quickly sketch. You have to forgive my crooked line there, I was kind of going in a hurry. But if you have a ruler or something like that, then you can draw a much better line. Also, it's easier when you have gridded paper. You can kind of follow along and draw a better line. If you have gridded paper also, then you can count the number of boxes instead of just roughly sketching it like that too, and it makes it a lot easier. You don't need to panic if you have fractions. Okay, the fractions are just, you're going to work them the same way that we've always worked the fractions. I am going to show you a little shortcut though, because when we're letting the y equal 0 or letting the x equal 0, okay, if I want to find the x-intercept and I'm going to let the y equal 0, it's basically the same thing as just covering it up. So I can skip real quickly to just 3/5 x equals 30. Okay, so now how do I get rid of the fraction? Okay, the same way I always do. I'm going to flip it over and multiply. So I'm going to put the 30 over 1. I'm going to multiply it by 5 over 3 because this fraction was 3/5. So over here the 3's are going to cancel, the 5's are going to cancel. All I have left is the x. Okay, over here 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 30 10 times, and then 10 times 5 is 50. So my x-intercept is 50. I can get that real quickly. Okay, if I want to find the y-intercept, I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, if I'm letting x equal 0, 0 times the 3/5 is just going to make a 0. So it's the same thing as me just kind of covering it up. Okay, so I can say 1/2 times y equals 30. Now this is where people get ahead of themselves. Okay, and they sometimes do it wrong. You're saying half of what number equals 30? Okay, not half of 30, but half of some number equals 30. So, same thing. If you just flip it over and multiply, 2 over 1, that's going to cancel, and then you do 30 times 2. Well, 30 times 2 is 60. So now, same thing. X-intercept is 50. I can mark down 50. Y-intercept is 60. Mark down 60. And then I can draw my line. So, nice easy way to get my x and y intercept. Nice easy way to graph and all that good stuff. Alright, here's a example of identifying, and we've got to interpret. Okay, so remember, every intercept is a point. So that point has a x and a y. So when you interpret what's going on, you have to interpret, what does the x value mean? What does the y value mean? Yes, one of those is always going to be 0, but it still means something, okay? So we've got to make sure that we get that right. Alright, so we have this example. It says, identify and interpret the intercepts for each situation. Plot the points on the graph and connect the points with a line segment. So it says, number 1 here, an electronics manufacturer has 140 capacitors, and the same number of capacitors is needed for each circuit board made. The manufacturer uses the capacitors to make 35 circuit boards. Okay, so basically, when they're starting out, it says he has 140 capacitors. So you're going to go right here to 140 and put a point. Okay, then it says the manufacturer uses the capacitors, like uses all of them, okay, to make 35 circuit boards. So you're going to come down here to 35 and put another point. Then you're going to draw your line. Alright, so it says identify and interpret, plot the points of the graph, connect the points with a line segment. So we've got our 2 points on the graph. Okay, so you would need to say that the y-intercept is 140. If you're going to write it as a point, you would say it is 0, 140. Okay, and then when it says interpret, what does that mean? Okay, it means that when the manufacturer started out, he had 140 capacitors, and he had made, he had 140 capacitors, and he had made 0 circuit boards. So when the circuit boards were at 0, when he hadn't made anything, he had 140 capacitors at the start. Okay, so you see how we have talked about the 140 and the 0. He had 140 capacitors, but he hadn't made any circuit boards. He had 0. Okay, so then when we go to the x-intercept, okay, our x-intercept is 35. If you're going to write it as a point, you would write it 35, 0. Okay, so what does that mean? When it says interpret, that means, what does it mean in words? What's going on in the story? Okay, so whenever the manufacturer used all of the capacitors, okay, so they had 0 left, there's not any remaining, he made 35 circuit boards. Okay, or they made 35 circuit boards and they used all of the capacitors to where there is none remaining. Okay, so identify and interpret the intercepts for each situation. Okay, we've done that. Okay, plot the points on the graph, connect the points with a line segment. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you've got to do. Okay, you've got to identify what the y-intercept and x-intercept are. You've got to interpret what do they mean according to the story. You've got to plot the points on the graph, and then you've got to draw a line segment through there. Okay. Hopefully you understood everything that's going on today. Hopefully you're going to do great on this assignment, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good day.